Oh, welcome. I'm Giovanni Hall Art, and today we'll be painting my Emma Frost drawing and just having a chill one before, or anything, just chilling. Yeah, you'd likely see, feel free to follow me. You can follow me on Instagram, Blue Sky, Tumblr, Twitter, TikTok, Twitch, YouTube, and Patreon for more exclusive stuff. I'll be listening to a podcast by Ron Mango as I'm working in the background. Yeah, let's get into it. Real session. All right, let's go.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Doorbell cameras are known for accidentally capturing a lot of creepy things. That's not even the purpose of a doorbell camera, but a lot of creepy things seemingly happen in front of people's homes. But there is this one other type of camera. The idea of this camera even just freaks people out, including myself. It is a wildlife camera. In concept, in theory, it's very exciting.
Hey,
You set it up in
welcome,
the woods,
CJ
typically
No
on a
Exotics.
large, isolated. Hopefully, you have the rights
Nothing
to this
much.
private property. And the goal being is
Just having a chill
spot a
session.
ton of wildlife.
I'm
Like,
about
you'll see
to
the deers
paint this
passing by.
drawing.
You'll see the bears. That's where you get the videos of the bears
Emma
in the middle of
Frost
nowhere trying to sleep on a
from
hammock.
Marvel's rival.
And then
So
they're like
that's-
flopping around.
The camera is designed to do that.
Yes, where you just get to study the wildlife. Some people will use it for hunting purposes to track the activity of specific animals, but that's
How are
another
you doing?
story. Now, there are animals that will come and stare at the camera while they go through your vegetable garden, and they'll just pull out carrots. There's clips of beavers just gnawing on carrots in front of the camera, looking directly into your soul. But the wildlife cameras, they do have a strange habit of picking up things that don't even look like animals. Sometimes they don't even look like humans. A lot of people say they're just weird shadows. Or one wildlife camera owner even reports seeing this weird creature holding a dead coyote by the throat. Or some will report checking the wildlife camera and just seeing hundreds of glowing orbs staring at them. They're like, it felt like eyes. But September of 2021, one of the creepiest clips from a wildlife camera starts going viral. It is a motion-activated game camera in the middle of the woods, and this gets alerted of motion and starts recording at 6 a.m. There's a shadow of movement coming from the left corner, and that movement comes slowly towards the center. It's a man. Why are we freaking out about a man? He's wearing a white shirt, black pants, he's carrying a backpack. He looks like a hiker. Why is this that creepy when there's giant wolves allegedly hiding out in the woods?
Yep.
Because everyone starts reporting that the man in the video could be Brian Laundrie. At least initially, they all say, wait, this could be the Brian Laundrie that we're looking for. The man who has gone missing after his fiancée, Gabby Petito, is found killed at Grand Teton National Park. He had gone on a road trip with her, came back with the van and not Gabby. And since
I remember
then,
that one.
he did not talk to authorities. And then 2 weeks later, he randomly vanishes. Could this be him? Where is Brian Laundrie? And did he fake this whole disappearance? Did he even fake his death to get away with murder? We would like to thank today's sponsors who have made it possible for Rotten Mango to support the official Gabby Petito Foundation. I'm going to leave all the resources linked below. This nonprofit is dedicated to supporting missing persons, assisting survivors,
Oh, welcome.
and
Hey,
working
Joshua.
towards a future
I'm finally
that's
clearing
free
it.
from DV.
Thanks for stopping
This
by.
episode's partnerships
Always
have
good to
also
see
made
you.
it possible to support Rotten Mango's
And
growing
always thanks
team.
for, like-
We'd also like to thank you guys for your continued support.
I was working on a
As
new
always, full show
drawing
notes are
off
available at
camera.
RottenMangoPodcast.com.
I'll be
Now,
doing that one
today's case
soon.
does involve
Missions.
heavy themes of DV. Additionally,
back to
this is a
personal
two-part
artwork.
series, so please go watch part one. In part one, we went over the newly released text messages between Gabby and Brian, Gabby and her ex-boyfriend that was interviewed for the Netflix documentary. And this part, we're going to go through the conspiracy theories of why the Netflix drama resurged this idea that Brian Laundrie is still alive. Legally, I do need to disclaim that no living person has been criminally charged and that any and all theories, conspiracies, comments, opinions, and the likes are publicly available netizen opinions, not my own. I do have very strong
That's
opinions about certain
crazy.
people involved in this case, and they're negative ones, but as always, do your own research before forming your own. With that being said, let's get started. The first words on the page read, if you're going to read this, don't bother. Save yourself. What happens here is going to piss you off. After that, it just gets worse and worse. I mean, what you're getting here is a stupid story about a stupid little boy. And it opens with two people at a restaurant. It's like a fancy steakhouse. It's Victor and his friend, and Victor crams this giant piece of steak into his mouth, and his friend is just shaking his head. Please don't do this here. There are people dressed in their best clothes, eating balls of caviar on top of their already expensive cuts of beef. But Victor knows exactly how to play this. He's gonna let the drool fall under his chin. He sees his friend cringe in embarrassment, shame, pity, anger. He doesn't care. He takes a sip of the wine, and it's game time. He waits until the steak is so clogged in his throat that he can't even breathe. And that's when it all snaps. He falls out from his chair. His eyes are rolling back, all on cue. The only one not alarmed or impressed by Victor is his friend. But Victor thinks this works every single time. It has yet to fail him. This is what pays for his mom's hospital bills. He says, quote, "I'm here to create heroes, put people to the test. Somebody saves your life, they're gonna love you forever. It's like you're their child now. They call you on the phone to find out if you're feeling okay, to see if maybe you need some cheering up or some cash. You gain power by pretending to be weak. By contrast, you make people feel strong. You save
I had to
people
do
by
some
letting them save you. All you have
revisions
to
to this
do
drawing
is
to
be
make it
fragile and grateful
TikTok
and stay the
approved.
underdog.
But I'll be doing different versions of this
People
drawing.
really need somebody they feel superior to. You're the proof that they're a hero. Evidence of their success. People
get
will
some
jump
face
through
colors
hoops
down.
if you just make them feel like a god.
That is so fascinating.
And within minutes, an arm with a solid gold watch wraps around his belly and starts jamming his fists under his rib cage, telling him, "You're okay, you're okay." And once that steak flies out of Victor's mouth, he says, they're gonna hold your head to their chest. They're gonna rock you, saying, "Everybody get back, make some room now, the show is over." And already, you're their child. You belong to them. They'll put a glass of water to your lips and say, "Just relax, it's over." For years to come, this person's gonna call you. They're gonna write you. You're gonna get cards and maybe a check here and there for your birthday. This person will be so proud of you because you make them so proud of themselves. Don't hold anything back. This is gonna be the best story of somebody's life. This is the story of Choke by Chuck Palahniuk, a man who pretends to choke at restaurants to make a living so that he can pay for his mother's Alzheimer's care bills, which he has a very complicated relationship with his mom. And it is also one of Brian Laundrie's favorite books. And the internet started trying to find connections between Brian Laundrie and the book because,
It's crazy.
I mean, I guess mainly due in part the fact that Brian Laundrie had strangled Gabby Petito. So a lot of people, without reading the book, they were trying to overanalyze the name of the book. Chuck Palahniuk writes a lot of kind of twisted stories. And one interesting quote from the book reads, "I just want one person I can rescue. And I want one person who needs me, who can't live without me. I want to be a hero, but not just one time. What I want to be is needed. What I need to be is indispensable to somebody. Who I need is somebody that will eat up all my free time, my ego, my attention, someone addicted to me, a mutual addiction." And maybe that's what Brian Laundrie wanted from Gabby.
That's interesting.
Brian is obsessed with Chuck Palahniuk. He writes, and I'm not saying this as like, oh, what is Chuck Palahniuk doing? That's wrong. I don't know his like personal affiliations or his like political views or anything like that. But just if you judge just his artwork, there's nothing particularly alarming. It is gruesome. There's lots of trigger warnings for each one of his books. And Chuck Palahniuk writes thriller books. They're more horror, I would say. He did Fight Club.
Oh.
That's how most people know Chuck Palahniuk, but he's got some like crazy other stories. But Fight Club is what he's mainly known for.
Okay,
Brian
I
writes
didn't
on
know
his
that.
Instagram though.
Good movie.
Reading is different from any other consumption of media. It takes more effort than staring at a screen half alive. It allows you to use your brain rather than melt it. And there is no author more stimulating to me than Chuck Palahniuk. Some quotes that he liked include from Fight Club. "Only after disaster can we be resurrected. It's only after you've lost everything that you're free to do anything. Nothing is static. Everything is evolving. Everything is falling apart."
Where do we get these from? He
His
posts.
Instagram. He'll repeat the quotes. He'll caption his artwork with these quotes. He loves drawing characters from Chuck Palahniuk's books. And really, everything is falling apart now. Gabby's body was found strangled in the Grand Teton Mountains in Wyoming, and the one person that knows what happened to her is missing. September 11th, just a recap of the timeline. Nobody has heard directly from Gabby from what feels like around August 25th to potentially August 27th. August 27th is the last time that she's seen alive. Investigators believe that she was killed the night of August 27th. September 11th, Gabby is reported missing by her parents. 6 days later, September 17th, Brian is reported missing by his parents. 2 days after he's gone missing, Gabby's body is found. So how the hell does Brian go missing? Ever since the news picked up the story of Gabby Petito, the entire Laundrie family home where Brian is hiding out is swarmed by press, reporters, cameras, protesters. The authorities even had hidden cameras set up near the house from the neighbors' property lines, going into the backyard of the Laundries, the front yard, all being live streamed straight to the police station. So what the hell do you mean he's gone?
みんなで翻訳 DL サイトは日本の漫画を世界に届ける新作
It almost becomes like a sport in Florida. Hunting Brian Laundrie. Bounty hunters start joining in the search with the sentiment that if anyone's going to find Brian, it's going to be a bounty hunter. One bounty hunter describes the industry and profession as simply, it's like professional stalking. I mean, we're professional stalkers, really. One bounty hunter says the only thing that you need to be good at bounty hunting was 2 things: patience and a big jug. You have to be able to sit and watch a house for days, pee in that jug. You can't leave. If you leave, they might pull up or they might leave. You can't move. Sure, you can have a little snack, but you got to be ready to sit in that car for 10 hours and pee in a jug.
So these bounty hunters are just staring at the house? They're not out there hunting?
They're out there hunting now.
Is there a bounty for that?
Yes, tens of thousands of dollars. Now, Dog the Bounty Hunter, Dwayne Chapman, if you will, his real name, he goes viral for joining on the search for Brian Laundrie. Now, Doug the Bounty Hunter,
Controversial history.
Dog the Bounty Hunter, he's nothing if not a man of controversies of his own. He faced his own criminal charges of first-degree murder in the 70s.
Whoa.
He wasn't the one that shot the victim, Jerry, in a weed deal gone wrong, but he was in the car while his friend shot Jerry, which Dog was placed in jail for 18 months for, and now he chases fugitives of the law with a taser because he's not even legally allowed to own a gun. So for those who like him, he is now a celebrity bounty hunter. For those who hate him, he's a con-man TV personality with no redeeming
I
qualities.
thought his wife was
He's
cheating
on
on
a
him or something.
huge, long-running reality show where he just chases criminals to make bounties. He would hunt them down. But his whole reality show gets canceled because of allegations that he is both racist and homophobic. One example, he repeatedly referred to his son's girlfriend by the racial slur, to which he later states in an interview, "I thought I had a pass from black people to use it," kind of like Eminem.
I thought it
Everyone
was
was like, what is that?
Hollywood-
he also denies
Hulk
his
Hogan.
daughter's allegations of being homophobic, and then he turns around to do interviews where he is blatantly transphobic, even threatening to fight specific trans influencers, which is completely unprompted, like nobody asked you.
That's
He just comes out
crazy.
swinging in demorality, like just disgusting morals and his transphobia. Nevertheless, his own daughter has come out to accuse her father of cheating on his late wife, Beth,
That's
while
what I
going through
heard.
cancer treatments, threatening her
Cheating.
and
That's
his
all I
own daughter
remember.
with violence. He's also said with his own mouth, proudly, that he will deport any illegal immigrants. He says, it's also the way he says it, "I will deport, export, and yeehaw, they're going back home."
That's
I mean,
crazy.
it's crazy. He also owes $2 million in taxes, which he did ultimately pay to avoid being a fugitive from the law himself. But regardless of this man's lack of morality and bizarre fashion choices, him joining, the fact that he joins the search, starts doing interviews with the media, it does blow up the entire case even more, to some degree. He even goes to the Laundrie home knocking on the door. He says,
I carry a reputation with me. See me every night on Pluto TV. I thought, wow, the dad's gonna, see me and crack it. I know the kid knows me, probably one of my fans. We get a scent of a trail. We get
That's
a
crazy.
scent he's done.
they don't talk to him. They don't talk to him. Netizens had 3 different reactions to this. Either Dog the Bounty Hunter is gonna get him. He gets everyone. Or 2, look at this bozo. I mean, he doesn't even know what he's talking about. Wait, are we seriously? With some people joking, if Dog finds this guy before the FBI, I don't think any of us should ever pay federal taxes anymore. Because that's how bad he is. And 3, the more popular reaction. Forget Dog the bounty hunter. Forget everybody. The only people who know where Brian is are his parents. But above all those extenuating circumstances, Dog is out there recording himself in the Florida swamps searching for Brian Laundrie. By the way, this is supposed to be his honeymoon. He comes back from his honeymoon early. And then he promptly sprains his ankle while searching for Brian Laundrie, so he's got to sit one out. It's like a mess. It's a dirty mess. Okay, he sits one out while the rest of the team continues without him, but that does not stop Brian's attorney from releasing a statement to the Post that says, dusty relics like that dog need a tragic situation like this so they can clear the cobwebs off their names and give the publicity-hungry egos some food. The dog snaps back. It's ironic that Mr. Bertolino, the Laundrie's family attorney, would criticize the people trying to find Brian Laundrie, unless perhaps he doesn't want him to be found. The problem with the search for Brian Laundrie is he goes missing at Carlton's Reserve in Florida. That is about 25,000 acres of wood and just pure swamps at this point. It's about 1.5 times the size of Manhattan.
Wow.
There's 2 words to describe the last place that Brian was found or was seen, and it's allegedly vast and unforgiving. That's it. Those are the 2 words, especially during flooding season. September 2021, when Brian Laundrie is reported to have gone missing in that reserve, 75% of the reserve is underwater. I'm not talking liquid to your ankles. I'm talking to your chest. Most areas are waist deep at the very least. The water is obviously not clean. There's mud, debris, but also alligators, venomous snakes just slithering around. There's also wild hogs in the reserve, giant fire ants. You get bit by one of these fire ants, you're gonna have a second head somewhere on your body. It's gonna be that big. Mosquitoes constantly trying to bite you, crawl up your nose into your eyes. And if it's not that, there's thick bushes and vines that keep tangling your legs while you wade through the water. And it's humid. You would think water sounds cool, refreshing. It's so humid. It's so smelly. The heat, you're in the water, but you feel disgustingly sweaty and the mosquitoes are sticking to you. Your sweat is making all the debris stick to you. It is not a place you want to wait around looking for a missing person.
So this is what the parents said Brian is missing at,
Yes.
right? Why would he be there, first of all?
They said that he went to clear his head for a hike and then never came back. Now, making the search even trickier, the grounds have served previously as indigenous resting sites. And the tricky part of that is to the cadaver dogs, the scent of death is the scent of death. They're going to start alerting to graves from the past. It would be very difficult to bring in like a cadaver dog to a cemetery. It's just not going to work as well, which is why some people started bringing in adrenaline dogs. They are dogs that are not trained off the scent of death, or even tracking dogs that are trained off of like, here, smell Stephanie's sweater, go find Stephanie in the woods. They are trained off of the very specific scent that humans have. We give off a scent apparently. If our bodies are under stress or adrenaline, the way we breathe, anytime we sweat, it has a very specific scent.
I did not know that.
There are
Yeah.
some dogs that are trained to just chase that scent. It's very difficult though, because you will have investigators who are probably feeling those things as well. Probably not as strongly. I don't know how the discrepancy is there, but some people were bringing in adrenaline-seeking dogs that are looking for those stress-related biomarkers that they're trained to detect. So it's great in theory, but pretty much all the dogs deployed in this search are just getting attacked by alligators.
Oh, no.
I don't think any of them were getting injured, but they're getting attacked. They're having too many close calls with the alligators. In these conditions, experts say anything that's dead in these conditions, you're going to be able to see it. Usually, you're going to see a swarm of flies in the area, but because everything is wet, it's hard. People are bringing in adrenaline dogs, cadaver dogs. The FBI's come in and thermal imagery is being used. Helicopters are flying up top. Giant boats are being used. ATVs. There's swamp boats. These are like 15-foot tall giant wheels with a little platform on top. They're just called swamp buggies. They're just to get you through the swamps. They're searching 40 square miles, and it's reportedly costing $1.5 million of taxpayer money, close to about, reportedly, $200,000 a day, searching for Brian Laundrie in what feels like an endless abyss of swamps, wading through water, trying not to run into alligators. All because what? Brian's parents tell the FBI? Yeah, I think that's where he is. How can we even be sure? With one netizen commenting, so his parents call police after he's missing for 2 days, won't talk to the police about someone else's child that's missing for 2 weeks, and we're just gonna go with it? Another points out, I am incensed that we spent $1.5 million on a tip from the laundry parents. I would never have even listened to their tips. Especially because the laundries are freaking shady. Nothing about what the parents say about Brian going missing make any sense at all. They say he walks out of the house September 13th, 2021. He leaves his phone. He drives his silver Mustang to go on a hike. He doesn't come home. 2 days later, Brian's parents go to the Carlton Reserve and they see his silver Mustang parked. They see like a little note on top that's like, hey, we're gonna tow your car. So what do? They drive the car home. That's crazy. If my son went missing without a phone, I don't have kids, but I'm assuming if anyone I loved went missing without a phone, I would at least leave the car. Because I'm like, at least if you can get to the car, that's one way to contact someone or do something. Like, to take the car away is also strange. So they take the car away, bring it home, and then eventually they casually just tell the FBI, my beloved baby boy, my baby son, is missing. With some wondering, okay, are we looking for a dead guy in the swamps, or is he alive and running in the swamps?
Question.
Everybody has been debating about that. Can he even survive in these conditions if he really is in the reserve? Brian likes to think of himself as a little survivalist, but the Carlton Reserve is not optimal for survival in any way. Firstly, the flooding, which great, you're thinking so much water, right? But if you drink that water without disinfecting it within hours, you're gonna be crawled up feeling weaker than a kitten, having both ends just projectile squirting all sorts of liquids. And because you're so frail, you can't even move. And then the sun is going to set, the mosquitoes come out, and they're gonna eat you alive. They're gonna tear through your flesh. And what about the alligators? What are they gonna do? Some people say it's not even the alligators. The real problem are honestly the venomous snakes and the wild pigs. Wild pigs are particularly very aggressive, and they're enthusiastic
I've seen a video.
scavengers. There's also black bears, panthers, and if you're not fighting an actual animal, there's flesh-eating bacteria that thrive in these types of flooded waters. With one wilderness expert stating, there's no surviving out here. It's totally underwater. I don't know how to say, I don't see anybody can make it out here for 10 days, 5 days. There's no water supply, no fresh springs. There's no stores available unless you go 12 miles either direction. Just no possible way. The mosquitoes will carry you off the first night. Many netizens think, yeah, that's why he's not there. Writing, so the cops are just looking in the area that was suggested to them by his parents? It sounds like a misdirection. One former U.S. Marshal says, I personally think that he could be anywhere right now. It doesn't matter. Mexico, he could be boat sitting off the coast of Cuba. It doesn't matter. He's going to mess up. He's going to make a mistake. I would run as fast and as far as I could too if I were him.
So how did they have so many cameras and people around his house
Yeah.
and let him get away like that? Or even
Okay.
just leave the house without tracking him? I thought everyone's like hunting him.
This is the most infuriating part. Obviously, protesters take time away.
Yeah.
You know, there's no protester that's sitting out there 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
A lot of the news reporters, they're not there 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
It seems like there's high points of traffic for them. And then the police are supposed to be technically watching Brian Laundrie. Or at least that's what all the netizens assumed. That's what people assumed, right? However, the police later come up with this really sordid excuse where they say, we thought we saw Brian go back into that house. Turns out it was his mom wearing a baseball hat. Now, mind you, Brian is like a tall, skinny dude. Roberta Laundrie is a little bit rounder. I mean, she definitely has more of a frame that is reminiscent of a mother, a middle-aged mother. And also, Brian Laundrie is bald and has a beard. So I don't
Okay.
know if it makes it better or worse, their excuse. They're like, we thought we saw him go back into the house after a hike, but it actually turned out to be his mom. So I'm sorry, you guys. Yeah, that's what they say. There's all this discourse of where is he? Maybe he's in the Appalachian Trail. Maybe he's somewhere else. Maybe he's in Mexico. But one interesting thing to note is Gabby's dad points out, we couldn't find Gabby. What did we do to find Gabby? I mean, we did everything to find Gabby. We talked to everyone. We got on as many cameras as we could. What are they doing to find Brian? They called the cops. They haven't done anything since. I haven't seen them on any TV shows. Why do you think that is?
They don't want to find him.
Yeah. That's the two speculations. Either they already know where he is, or two, they don't want him to be found. Maybe it's both. There are certain pieces of evidence in this case that have been released that help us see the dynamic between Gabby and Brian a bit better. I will say that Gabby and Brian were both avid journalers. And it's very interesting, and I don't know if this is me just looking too into it. I think sometimes when you read people's journals, especially in cases like this, you have certain people where it does feel like they're writing for a third party. And then you have people who look like the writing feels very natural and just kind of sporadic, and it seems like they're writing for themselves to clear their minds. It feels like Gabby is that. Brian's journal, a lot of it feels like he's writing for a reader. Like he wants someone to read it, or maybe he has this weird suspicion that someone will come across it and read it. It's just not the same. But Gabby, she was a bit more positive with her art and writing. She would draw things and write phrases like, be open-minded, stay in drugs, eat your school, don't do vegetables. So it's like she's trying to make a play on these words, right? In her notebook, it seems like she genuinely tried to use it as a way to express herself. In one drawing, there's a girl sitting there with her eyes crossed out and the word censored over her mouth. She writes, I'm sorry I let you down. In another journal entry, she writes, I feel bad I'm always on my phone. I should give Brian more attention. He loves me so much. I don't deserve it, and I'm lucky that he sticks with me. In another one, though, she writes, I feel like I'm walking on eggshells. Meanwhile, Brian's Pinterest account is liking pictures of a dog with the words, the opposite of lost. Don't try to find me. I have finally escaped my master's wicked clutches. To the others, I say, join me. Bite the hand that feeds you. Or he's liking Chuck Palahniuk's Fight Club quotes. It just seems like Gabby is putting in work for the relationship. She's trying to work on herself, and he's just trying to be like a Pinterest boy. In a letter released by the FBI from Gabby to Brian, it reads, Brian, you know how much I love you, and I'm writing this with love. Just please stop crying and calling me names because we're a team and I'm here with you. I'm always going to have your back. Sorry I got upset over a dumb piece of paper, but I just wanted to do that with you. Yes, I can be a child sometimes, I know, but it's because you give me this energy and I love you too much. Like so much it hurts. So your pain is killing me. I'm not trying to be negative, but I'm frustrated that there's nothing more that I can do. It seems like she's trying to help him. Another letter to him reads, to Batman, we can work in the van together and they are our dreams now. So I hope you understand when I'm upset, it's because you make me love you too much. Now stop crying and come home and say you love me with a big hug. Meanwhile, Brian is busy ranting about his home life. One journal entry reads, no one's doing anything but eating in silence and hiding from each other. I can't stay because if we decide to stay, nothing will change. No weight will be lifted. I have no options because I'm a ghost, a shell. I never had a home or a family. In another, he rants, a house and a home are not the same. Some people never have a home. Moving from place to place, home is where the heart is. What about under a bridge or a drainage tunnel? Human reminds me of those hermit crabs who put their crap on their head, or just hermit crabs in general. Exoskeleton in a shell, vulnerable without them. Anything can kill a hermit crab without its shell. It seems like Brian has a very troubled home life, but that's very interesting because Roberta Laundrie, Brian's mom, seems like she's very clear on how she feels about her son, Brian. After Gabby goes missing, a letter is found by FBI agents in Brian Laundrie's home. So a lot of people actually thought it was found with Brian Laundrie later when his remains are found, but it's actually found inside of his home.
When did they search the home?
This was after he goes missing. Now, at the front of the letter, it just reads, burn after reading. It is from Roberta Laundrie, Brian's mom, to Brian.
And it was not burned.
No. It reads, I just want you to remember, I will always love you. I know you'll always love me. You are my boy. Nothing can make me stop loving you. Nothing will or could ever divide us no matter what we do or where we go or what we say. We will always love each other. If you're in jail, I will bake you a cake with a file in it. If you need to dispose of a body, I will show up with a shovel and garbage bags. If you fly to the moon, I'll be watching the skies for your re-entry. If you say you hate my guts, I'll get new guts. Remember that love is a verb, not a noun. It's not a thing. It's not words. It is actions. Watch people's actions to know if they love you, not their words. Therefore, I am certain that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor the ruling spirits, nor the present, nor things to come, nor powers from above, nor powers from below, nothing in the entire created world can separate our love. Neither hostile powers, nor messengers of heaven, nor monarchs of earth, nothing has
That's
the
crazy.
power to separate us.
Very intense.
Romans 8:38 extended version. Nothing can separate us. Not hatred, not hunger, not homelessness, not threats, not even sin, not the unthinkable or unthinkable can get between us. Not time, not miles and miles and miles and miles. And that is the end of the letter.
Handwritten?
Handwritten.
That's crazy because Brian likes these like weird quotes,
Yes.
and the mother also sends a bunch of quotes.
Yeah, but
I found the perfect slot casino for Ontarians. It's called Betty.
they're not quotes.
I know. I'm saying
Like phrases,
Yeah,
yes.
it's like very
Just very dark and weird.
Yeah.
It's just not something that you normally say to somebody.
Yeah.
I think that, I mean, I don't know because I don't have kids. I know my sister would die for her kids. But if my sister is writing these types of letters for her kids, I'd say you need to like check yourself out because this is just not something you write to your kid. This is not how you express undevoted, unconditional parental love.
yeah.
And it's just weird.
Wait, are we saying this letter was written before everything, or this was written after?
Roberta Laundrie, it's not dated. Roberta Laundrie claims from the heaven and the stars down to fucking hell and back that she wrote this months before. She wrote this months and months and months before.
Please.
Everybody is pretty consistently in the personal beliefs, opinions, that it was written after Brian came home.
Yes, because she say burn after
Yeah.
reading it.
And she's writing about dead bodies. She's writing about jail. She's writing about nothing can separate. Like, what kind of hardship do normal people go through that's like, nothing will separate us? It's not like life is so hard, but I will always be with you. It's like, you and me can never be separated no matter what happens.
Yeah.
It's a very apocalyptic message, honestly.
Yeah, and he probably didn't burn it because he wanted to keep that.
Yeah.
He wants to read it again or whatever.
Yeah. Now, this letter becomes a very big point of contention. Does that mean Roberta Laundrie knew what happened in Gabby in Wyoming? Did she not say anything even though she knew? And if she knew that, does that mean she knows where Brian is right now? One netizen just writes, it's really giving I love you more than any other woman could vibes. There is just no way that a woman who writes that kind of letter will ever be telling anyone where her son is. In the meantime, the FBI starts getting about 200 to 300 tips per day, sightings all over the country. Gabby's stepmom, Tara, says Gabby is missing, and the one person that knows what happened that was with her is now gone. October 20th, 37 days after Brian goes missing, the Carlton Reserve had been closed to the public due to all the flooding. October 20th, the park opens back up to the public. They're like, it's safe to come back in here. The alligators are not everywhere, not 75% of the park. The FBI is informed that the Laundrie parents are going to go to the park as soon as it opens up to the public, and they're going to try to find Brian. Law enforcement, obviously, they go with them, and the energy is very tense. The Laundries say they know where their son likes to hike. They know where he likes to camp. They start their search at 7 in the morning, which, side note, one FBI agent mentions how it was just so unbearably tense. I mean, the Laundries did not emote. About an hour into the search, Chris Laundrie just finds a waterproof bag that belongs to Brian. Just within like 20 minutes of the search.
What?
Soon after, they find Brian Laundrie's remains. Within an hour and 20 minutes of the Laundries starting the search, they find Brian.
And this is a huge area.
Yeah, but also, Brian's remains were found about a mile from where he parked his silver Mustang. The agents present said his belongings were still there, his clothes were still there, his shoes were still there, but he had completely decomposed all the way down to the bones. At the main scene, they find many of Brian's skeletal remains, including his pelvis, multiple ribs, multiple skull fragments. Nearby, they find a pair of green shorts with a green belt, 2 slip-on shoes, a backpack, a white metal ring, and an unknown type of handgun. The secondary scene combines skeletal animal remains, which are placed so distinctly nearby that it seems like perhaps he had eaten those animals. Maybe he was trying to source for food, or he just killed the animals, we don't know. Or maybe it's by coincidence.
What animals?
It seems like smaller animals.
Oh, okay.
Now, a handwritten note and a hat with the logo Moab Coffee Roasters. Moab, Utah is where they were pulled over for the DV call. A dry bag that contains a journal and a wooden box containing a small notebook as well as photographs were also found. Next to his body is the revolver, and the autopsy report would later show that he died by gunshot wound. Multiple of his skull fragments were found 2 feet from a pair of green pants. Like, they're just kind of scattered within this distinctive area. In his backpack, he even has a tent and flares, a tent that he never pitched. So some people thought this whole thing was so strange. Like, he went in there for a walk, but he brought a tent. Needless to say, netizens are skeptical about this whole thing. Even the fact that the laundry parents walked in and within an hour they find Brian, even though law enforcement have been scouring the entire reserve for months. And this is about a mile from where he parked his car, so likely they were really scouring this general central area.
Yeah.
A reporter asked the laundry family attorney, how did the laundries know where to look? Because from September 17th to October 18th, a full month, the FBI is spending millions of dollars in manpower to search with cadaver dogs, heat detection tech, radars, everything. After all of that, the park finally opens up and within an hour or two, the laundries find their son in an area that had been previously 3 feet underwater. The attorney states, well, Brian liked to hike that reserve many times. Chris has hiked with him several occasions as well. I mean, they kind of knew his favorite spots. We had told law enforcement from the beginning where Brian would most likely be in the areas of the park, but I guess they didn't look well. But the one thing of interest that was found near Brian Laundrie is a letter. Some people call it his confession, but it's more of like a bullshit story. It's also very interestingly a hero's tale.
Wait, a handwritten letter?
Yes.
Was intact?
It was like in a dry bag, and it looks like one of those waterproof journals.
That is so bizarre.
Written on the journal, it reads, and this is condensed in part, but Gabby, I wish I was right at your side. I wish I could be talking to you right now. I'd be going through every memory we've made, getting even more excited for the future. I can't live without you. I've lost every day we could have spent together, every holiday. I loved you more than anything. I can't bear to look at all your photos, to recall great times, because it is why I cannot go on. When I close my eyes, I will think of laying on the roof of the van, falling asleep to the sight of a meteor shower at the Crystal Geyser. I will always love you. I am sorry to everyone that this will affect. Gabby was the love of my life, but I know, adored by many. I'm so very sorry to her family because I love them. My best of friends, I am sorry to my family. This is a shock to them as well as a terrible grief. They loved as much, if not more than me. A new daughter to my mother, an aunt to my nephews. Please do not make this harder for them. This occurred as an unexpected tragedy. Rushing back to our car, trying to cross the streams of Spread Creek in Grand Teton National Park. Before it got too dark to see, too cold. I hear a splash and a scream. I could barely see. I couldn't find her for a moment. I shouted her name. I found her breathing heavily, gasping my name. She was freezing cold. We had just come from this blazing hot national park in Utah. The temperature had dropped to freezing and she was soaking wet. I carried her as far as I could down the stream towards the car, stumbling, exhausted and shocked, when my knees buckled and I knew I couldn't safely carry her. I started a fire and spooned her as close to the heat as possible. She was so thin, had already been freezing too long. I couldn't at the time realize that I should have started a fire first, but I just wanted her out of the cold back to the car. From where I started the fire, I had no idea how far the car might be. When I pulled Gabby out of the water, she couldn't tell me what hurt. She had a small bump on her forehead that eventually got larger. Her feet hurt, her wrist hurt, but she was freezing, shaking violently. While carrying her, she continually made sounds of pain. Laying next to her, she said little lapsing, between violent shakes, grasping in pain, begging for an end to her pain. She would fall asleep, and I would shake her awake, fearing she shouldn't close her eyes if she had a concussion. She would wake in pain, start the whole painful cycle again, while furious that I was the one waking her. She wouldn't let me try to cross the creek, thought me, that this fire would go out in her sleep and she would freeze. I don't know the extent of Gabby's injuries, only that she was in extreme pain. I ended her life. I thought it was merciful. That is what she wanted, but I see now all the mistakes I made. I panicked, I was in shock, but from the moment I decided, took away her pain, I knew I couldn't go on without her. I rushed home to spend any time I had left with my family. I wanted to drive north and let either Jim, the stepdad, or Gabby's brother kill me, but I wouldn't want them to spend time in jail over my mistake, even though I'm sure that they would have liked to. He states in the letter that he will be self-exiting, quote, not because of fear of punishment, but rather I cannot stand to live another day without her. Please do not make life harder for my family. They lost a son and a daughter, the most wonderful girl in the world. Gabby, I'm sorry. I have self-exited by this creek in the hopes that the animals tear me apart, that it may make some of her family happy. Please pick up all of my things. Gabby hated people who littered.
Wow.
That is a
I don't think
crazy
we even
letter.
have to go in depth on all the ways that this doesn't make sense. I mean, just know that none of Gabby's autopsy results match Brian's version of events. None. Except for the fact that he killed her. One netizen writes, she complains when I try to get back to the van for help. Well, I guess the only logical thing to do is strangle her to death. Like, what kind of even narrative is this? One netizen points out that fellow van lifers, hikers, and visitors have always had cell service in that area that she was found. He could have easily called someone for help. Some are angry with his last line. Please pick up all my things. Gabby hated people who litter. What a fucking smack in the face to Gabby's family. This piece of shit is so beyond psychotic. Yeah, he felt so bad. He sent fake texts to her family, drained her bank account, stole her van, drove home, hid at his parents' house until it became impossible to hide, and then he took off, wrote this self-serving bullshit, and then
Spring? Robux? Spring! Robux!
Rick. One forensic psychologist states, it speaks to a level of selfishness and a degree of narcissism that it was important for other people and how they looked at him. He had the last word, and it was a self-serving narrative. Joe Petito states, he was a liar. Nothing he said in those stories were true, and he was a coward till the day he died. And his family has to know that he took the coward's way out, and they raised a coward. I would use other words, but this is TV, and it's just not appropriate. Gabby's stepdad, Jim, states, not one of the versions of Brian's accounts was accurate by the findings of Gabby's autopsy. The sole cause of her death was strangulation, and nothing remotely or even close to what he said. This letter has been judged to hell and back for the fact that he also uses the I pronoun way more than he writes about Gabby. It just seems like me. So the whole thing is symbolic of a hero's journey. He saves Gabby from her own carelessness of slipping into the creek. He carries her for as long as he can. He stays with her, and he even kills her out of compassion. This does not happen in real life. A lot of the times, this doesn't even happen in really extreme circumstances, let alone a hike. Like, it just doesn't happen. Especially when you know that in a previous journal entry, he wrote the words, even killers and R-worders and child R-worders are kept alive, not to torture them, but because death is a harsh punishment. But you're just like, I had to kill her because she was in pain. Now that Brian is no longer around to answer for his crimes, a lot of netizens feel, and I think justified, anger towards Brian's parents. It is many people's beliefs that Roberta and Chris Laundrie knew what Brian was doing. They knew where he was going to be. They knew they wasted taxpayers' time and money and gave the Petito family hope for justice when they knew what he had done. He had self-exited. Roberta has been called into question a lot in this case because she's just obsessed with her son. Roberta states, even after knowing what's happened, he's a very sweet boy, kind, considerate, loving. He loved his nephews. He loved his sister. He loved us. He had a lot of friends that he was really friendly with. He's a good boy, hard worker, and I could go on and on. He was wonderful.
That is insane.
In one deposition, she is straight up asked, were you jealous of Gabby's relationship with Brian? No. Do you recall an incident in which you threw a pie or like a cake away? I didn't remember it until you mentioned it yesterday. So she's in the deposition, and I didn't throw the pie away. It was a silly, and my feelings got hurt over a comment on the pie, and I did apologize to Gabrielle because I think my feelings were hurt and I was sulky, but I thought it was all forgotten and we were fine after that. But I was a little sulky that night, and the next day everything was fine. I'd forgotten about it until it came up yesterday, but I really thought nothing of it, and I thought she thought nothing of it too. Well, what was the comment that was upsetting to you? I don't remember if it was much of a comment so much. It was, I had made dinner and I had made this pie and I was excited about my pie and to present it on the table. My mother was visiting and I think I was just exhausted from all the people in the house. When I put the pie down, I think there was a comment. I think there was just a little ruckus at the table where it's so silly, but nobody made a nice comment. I guess it was a lack of comment. Nobody said, oh, nice pie. And I know that's so silly and I regret it, but I got annoyed. And I don't know why I got annoyed at kind of everybody and a little bit at Gabrielle. And it was silly. And I felt bad. I don't even remember it. I vaguely remember it. I just remember it was a pie and I was embarrassed, but I didn't throw out the pie. We ate the pie, but I don't know. I just behaved not so nicely and I apologized to Gabrielle and she was very nice about it and we were fine after that.
Because nobody said that was a nice pie when she brought out the pie.
Yeah. She would say things like, I wish my kids would stay little, but things were changing. He's growing up. He's taking a trip I wasn't thrilled about, and it was just difficult. In the deposition, she is asked, you would love your son no matter what, including murder? Roberta responds, well, I didn't say including murder, but I would always love my boy no matter what. Nothing, including murder, would make you stop loving him, correct? Oh, I would always love him. A lot of netizens think that this sets the tone for Brian, where he might feel like, hey, maybe it's not just my mom. Maybe every single woman and romantic partner or anyone in my life really should give me their unconditional, undying love, no matter what I do. Which I get it. Most parents would argue that they love their kids unconditionally, but to say it and to make them feel it is kind of weird. To some degree, I do think all love is conditional. I just can't imagine if someone I loved killed another person because of narcissism, jealousy, and DV and just like violent rage. I think that love would shift very drastically. I mean, maybe it's because I don't have kids, but I would even go as far to say, I just don't think that I could love that person anymore. I might feel responsible for them, but how do you love them still? To Roberta Laundrie, it looks like Brian could never do any wrong. But nobody can be convicted just for being unlikable and disgusting. In order for the Laundrie parents to be charged with anything, it would have to be proven that they knew Brian Laundrie killed Gabby Petito and that they took deliberate actions to assist him in evading law enforcement. That's pretty much the letter of the law. According to Roberta Laundrie's deposition, the week that Brian comes home mysteriously with the van but without Gabby, and the Laundries coincidentally pay a $25,000 retainer for an attorney, they also, that same week, take him to get a new phone. She is asked, why did he need a new phone? He didn't say. Later, she's asked about if she still has text messages between her and Brian, and she says, no, because when he bought a new phone, I answered his new number, and it automatically erased all the old texts. I've never seen that happen in my life.
Wait, what exactly she said happened?
I've had multiple new phone numbers, okay? She said he got a new phone. She started texting that new number, and it erased all the old text messages. It doesn't even make sense.
Oh. She's saying that I was texting my son's old number, and now I'm texting my son's new number, so all the old text messages are gone.
It's just a new text thread.
Yeah, it's just a new number. It's a new person.
Yeah.
To your phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's dumb.
It's very dumb.
But wouldn't you be able to dig that up too?
Yes, but this is a deposition in a civil trial between the Petito family and the Laundrie family. Mm. I think there's only so much that can be entered into discovery without getting a criminal case involved.
Mm. Yeah, I see.
So she says, no, because when I bought a new phone, I answered his new number and it automatically erased all the old texts. I didn't know it was going to do that. I didn't realize. Did you try to recover those old text messages? No, I didn't even know that you could or how to go about that. Even later, when she is asked about the series of phone calls Brian made to his parents soon after Gabby Petito was likely dead, and soon afterwards, the Laundrie parents called the attorney and put down a $25,000 retainer, Roberta states she has no recollection of those calls, but it was probably just them catching up. But when she gets repeatedly confronted with the fact that you immediately called Stephen Bertolino, your family attorney, right after, she said, no, I thought I called Brian. I don't know. Not even a moment later, she says, well, Chris, my husband, Brian's dad, told me Brian said Gabby was gone. And he told me that Brian wanted him to call a lawyer. I think that's when Chris was telling me what Brian said. Gabby's gone and please call a lawyer. Okay, so if Gabby's gone, please call a lawyer, doesn't that say to you that she's dead? I don't know what to think. I don't remember if it crossed my mind or if I was just so nervous. I just thought he was in some kind of trouble. I don't know. What other possible explanation could there be for she's gone, please call an attorney? A lot of things ran through my head. Possibly they got in a fight and, maybe she's going to press charges against him or something. I don't know. Did you ask? Well, I didn't call Brian back after that. I don't know if we talked again that day. Your son's upset. Your husband he says, Gabby is gone, call a lawyer. You call a lawyer and you never call your son back immediately to say, what's going on? What's happening? There is another 22-minute phone call, which she is asked about from her phone at around 11 p.m. that night with Brian. She says, yeah, I remember it was before I was going to bed. I think Chris was already asleep. And I remember he said he was driving home. Your husband was already asleep at that point after getting a phone call from your son that Gabby is gone. He's frantic and you call a lawyer? Was that all the same day? Well, it's a long weekend. We've been away. We've been at the beach with the kids and the race, and Chris falls asleep early. This is a girl you told me you loved, someone who was going to become part of your family, and you asked no questions about her, of your son, when you learned that she was gone. Correct? Correct. Weren't you concerned about her? I was, but I think it was my son. I was concerned for my son. I was concerned for her well-being because I cared for her, but my son's driving home and I'm nervous for him. Oh, you're concerned about her well-being. So what did you do about her well-being? Well, just, Gabrielle, I thought she always could take care of herself. And I was just concerned about my son at the time. And I just figured maybe her parents could come get her, or she would, last time he left her in a hotel. It's pointed out that while Roberta has Gabby's number, she never reached out once, even though she was concerned for her well-being. She could have just sent her a text message. She states, because I was just concerned about my son. And I don't know. Later, she's asked about what they spoke about when Brian gets home to Florida after this phone call of Gabby's gone, call an attorney, I'm going to start driving back to Florida. And she says, I think by that time, my attorney advised me just not to talk to him about anything. So I just gave him something to eat.
I switched from due dates to due dates, and it made me go from weeks behind to weeks ahead.
About anything. Did you have that natural instinct with Brian to want to speak with your child since he's hurting? Well, not to talk to him and, pump him for questions, but certainly to love him and feed him and hug him and, give him lots of love and keep him safe and close. Everything about the Laundrie's response so far, their behavior, I don't think that it's great. Protesters are outside of private homes, harassing citizens, but I don't think it's unwarranted. I see why it happens, right? I don't know if we can sit here and judge the ethics of it, because then we can just go down a rabbit hole, because what if it happened to somebody else who actually is not a bad person? We don't know, right? But in this situation, I can't say I would go to Florida and be like, protesters, go home, give them some space. It's just crazy. The protesters honestly are very smart with it as well. They start gathering outside, screaming justice needs to be served, bring Gabby home. They also, on a daily basis, they're bringing baskets of dirty laundry, because the laundry family, leaving it out on their lawn. And in the deposition, Roberta basically complains that the reason that she might not have responded to the way that people wanted her to respond was because, quote, there were people outside our doors, banging on our windows, sending us death threats. People were screaming very horrible things at us. It was a very scary time. We couldn't leave the house. It was frightening. Christopher Laundrie states in his deposition, there were people battering my house down. Everything was very difficult as far as, people, it was a very fearful time. Even their attorney states, for the last 4 to 5 weeks, people have been yelling and screaming outside of their homes, so they're not exactly willing to come out and say, oh, by the way, all you people who have been yelling at us, here's some information for you. One consistent feeling that a lot of netizens have is the Laundrie family have just never been able to read the room. They are constantly complaining about how hard their lives are, which is why eventually the Petito family will sue them for intentional infliction of emotional distress. Now, side note, even the Laundrie's family attorney is listed in this lawsuit. His name is Stephen Bertolino. He is not only their attorney that repped them and Brian for this case, he's a longtime neighbor and business partner to some degree. They would invest in real estate properties together. They're all quite friendly. They've known each other for over a decade. And Bertolino is, in my opinion, the lawyer that walks in with that baggy suit. But he's just got such a stinky attitude where you're like, I don't think that we should be yelling at the judge right now. Like, maybe we could yell at other people, but don't yell at the judge or the jury, because that's just dumb. He's just yelling and angry all the time. He just looks sour. Bertolino just never stops yapping. And these are my opinions that I'm allowed to have. The Laundries and the Bertolino, they say nothing helpful, but they also can't seem to shut the fuck up. They're questioned about the initial statement they released, stating that they hope Gabby is located and reunited with her family. Now, about this reunited statement, because it's been argued, if they knew that Gabby was deceased by this point, to say that they hope she's reunited with their family is intentionally causing emotional distress by instilling false hope that they know doesn't exist. That's what the Petito family are arguing in their lawsuit. Christopher Laundrie, the father, is questioned in the deposition. He's asked, if she was found dead, she couldn't be reunited with her family, could she? Reunited is a term for either or, I think. Either or what? Well, deceased or not. But it doesn't say remains, does it? I thought it was a good thing to say and a nice thing to say. Well, I'm not big on words, so my meaning is that they would get to either Gabby's alive, my interpretation of the word, or not. And it's not just the fact that they are so useless in the investigation, it's also the way that they talk. Bertolino, the attorney, the way he even refers to the Petito family is the only thing that the Petito family has done so far as communication is thrown out letters to the public. I mean, but you're asking me, could there have been conversations? There has never been an olive branch reached out to us by their side.
Olive branch?
Yeah.
For what?
That is what the reporter also asks. Their daughter was murdered by the Laundrie's son. Why would they be the ones to put out an olive branch? He doesn't really respond. And this isn't even the first time he's said something like this in an interview. He says, had one of the attorneys for the Petito family reached out to me, as they should, instead of doing it by Twitter or by open letter to the public, perhaps we would have resolved some certain issues many, many months ago. But that's not the path that the Petito family has chosen. So we will walk down the path with them that they have chosen to walk down. It's so amazing that people have so much audacity with no spine, no morals. I wouldn't even be able to show my face if that were me, but he's like, exactly. Later, when Brian is missing, Steven states, Chris and Roberta Laundrie do not know where Brian is. They are concerned about Brian and hope the FBI can locate him. The speculation by the public and some in the press that the parents assisted Brian in leaving the family home or in avoiding arrest or on a warrant, that was issued after Brian had already been missing for several days is just wrong. He states, the Laundries are being tortured in their own home by these protests outside. They're being harassed with lawsuits for a $40 sign that was more than likely on their property and should be considered litter. And all the foregoing is occurring when they have no idea whether their son is alive or not. Which, some further context, a woman did sue Christopher Laundrie. She was protesting outside the Laundrie house. Put up a sign. The sign read, what if this happened to Cassie? Now, this is Brian's older sister. This is their daughter. Chris walks up to the sign, rips it out of the ground, and walks with the sign back into his house. Clearly, the protester knows why she filed the lawsuit. She said, the lawsuit is going to keep this relevant. It's something that's going to drive the Laundries a little nuts. That's it. So I think it's for private property damage, the $40 sign. To which the attorney has responded, the protesting, the witch hunt, this mob-style crucifixion of Chris and Roberta Laundrie is just wrong, and enough is enough. A perpetrator straight up responds, like I could care less about that attorney and what he feels and thinks. Even the Northport police chief made a direct plea with Stephen Bertolino, stating, Mr. Stephen Bertolino, the Northport Police Department needs your help in finding Gabby. Please call us to arrange a conversation with Brian Laundrie. 2 people left on a trip and only 1 person has returned. Still, they continue to do what netizens feel is just not enough, with netizens writing, may your own karma find you. You are disgusting. Silence in this case is reprehensible. But others actually defend the attorney, writing, this man is just doing his job. It's the same exact job every single defense attorney out there does. Others respond, a good defense attorney who advises his clients not to give up their Fifth Amendment right as guaranteed by the Constitution is a good attorney. As for Brian going missing, Bertolino tells a reporter, the Laundries knew Brian was grieving the night he left. Brian left the house on September 13th. Gabby's remains are found September 19th. What do you mean the laundry parents knew that Brian was grieving when he left the house, when Gabby's body hasn't been found? So does that mean that they knew that Gabby was dead?
That's crazy.
When confronted with this word usage, he just says, well, Brian had been extremely upset. Chris and Roberta were very concerned about him. That's what I meant. He says, you know, you couldn't write this Greek tragedy. Brian is not a Ted Bundy. He's not a demon. He's not a serial killer. I'm not sure that the narrative that has been pushed that Brian was a mean killer and Gabby was an angel is entirely true. That really has nothing to do with this. It doesn't matter if Gabby was an angel or not. She was killed. You don't have to be this perfect victim that has never said a curse word or has never told a lie or has never done anything that society might deem as like, oh, maybe I wouldn't have done that. That's crazy. The whole family's entire response to everything is beyond bizarre. After the burn after reading letter, Roberta states that she wrote that letter, again, way before their cross-country trip. She's like, in a sworn affidavit, she states, I wrote it and gave it to Brian before Brian and Gabby left Florida for New York, which was June 2nd. The purpose of the letter was to reach out to Brian while he and I were experiencing a difficult period in our relationship. Brian and I shared a love of stories, and some of the language in the letter was using similar phrases to describe the depth of a mother's love. I had hoped this letter would just remind him of how much I loved him. She also says, because people are like, then why'd you say burn after reading? That's suspicious. She said, well, okay, it's actually Gabby's fault. Gabby bought this book on Amazon. It's like burn after writing. You know those journals where you do the things on the pages? It's like smash an orange onto this page and it says burn after using or burn after reading or writing. It's like one of those journals. She said it was a play on that. I mean, nobody believes that. I mean, clearly they have a very strange relationship between Roberta and Brian. Even in one of Brian's favorite books, Choke by Chuck Palahniuk, there's this very interesting quote. Again, could have no correlation, but he writes, I don't know, but until your mom dies, it seems like all the other women in your life can never be more.
Things have gotten pretty expensive lately, and I need to generate.
And it's not like you can divorce your mother or kill her.
This is a quote from the book.
Yeah, but it's just kind of weird because his relationship with his mom does feel, his mom, indeed, to many netizens, feels like the type of boy mom that feels like she is dating her son, that she's in competition with her son's romantic interests. Now, due to the lawsuit filed by Gabby's family, the laundry parents both have to sit in these depositions. They just say some of the most insane stuff in the depositions that, yes, legally, I'm sure very hard to argue, but morally and just on a human scale, it is hard to believe that someone is this dense. Even when confronted with the fact that everyone in the world, it feels like, is searching for Gabby, why did Roberta feel hope that Gabby was alive? She said, I just had hope. I've heard stories where people are looking for their daughter and they find her much later, and so I just never wanted to give up hope. In another part of the deposition, Roberta Laundrie is confronted with a statement that their attorney, Bertolino, put out that said, the news about Gabby Petito is heartbreaking. The Laundrie family prays for Gabby and her family. This was released after Gabby's body is found, which she is asked, how is the news heartbreaking to you guys? Oh, it was heartbreaking in so many ways. Just to know that Gabrielle was gone, and it was just heartbreaking. So it wasn't heartbreaking before that? Well, I didn't know she was gone until it was on the news. And then that's when it was, very heartbreaking. Which, side note, did you hear what she just said earlier? It was heartbreaking in so many ways just to know that Gabrielle was gone. This whole deposition, she's like, I didn't know gone means dead. I didn't know gone means dead.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking gone is dead. I was just thinking, I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking. She's confronted. Well, the words your husband told you on August 29th is that she was gone. Right. That was concerning, but heartbreaking. Our hearts were broken when we found out that Gabrielle was gone, deceased. So when you found out she was gone, did you reach out to her parents? No. Why not? We just kept following our attorney's advice not to speak to anybody. She's also questioned about a random coincidental email that she sends to Brian the day he calls his parents. So Gabby is suspected to have been killed the night of August 27th. They talk August 29th, and they hire that attorney. But also, Roberta sends Brian an email about how to get stains out of t-shirts.
When?
On the 29th. And she said it was just like an inside joke. She said, okay, so they ask, were you telling Brian how to get a blood stain out of a t-shirt? No. And she further elaborates, it's because Gabby was obsessed with Tide pens. And it was just like a thing. She just wanted to send it because she was thinking about them.
It's like they know the whole world knows.
Yeah.
And we all know what they know. Like,
yeah, it's like a very dumb.
Yeah, what? Yeah, anyways.
In the deposition, she further elaborates about the burn after reading letter, saying the whole thing, again, is just a joke. She says, even if they're not good jokes, I'm always joking. I would never actually think he would end up in jail. He was such a nice, good boy. I would never imagine it. You know, I would never imagine he would go to the moon. I didn't think he would suddenly become an astronaut and go to astronaut school and go to the moon. It was just being exaggerating and silly. It was a silly letter. Like, no matter what, I'll love you. I love you, love you, love you. Also, Roberta, you're weird. I don't know what else to say. But at one point, she's trying to explain that things are just jokes and what kind of jokes she finds funny. She said, the burn after reading letter, she's trying to explain, it's only weird now in hindsight. She didn't know any of this was going to happen. She wrote that months and months and months ago. She said, it's like, you know, when I went to work in the World Trade Center, they on the top floor had this place where tourists could come and get their picture taken, and it looks like they're leaping off the building. And it was very funny, and you could put like a funny face, and then you would pay $10 for this picture. And you get a picture of you falling off the Trade Center. That was so funny, and everybody had funny faces. I'm saying this was because at the time, it was a joke. Later, when people actually did fall off the World Trade Center, it was not so funny.
That is a crazy example.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like, I don't even think I would know what to say if I were the Petito family attorney. They're just like, well, this isn't so funny now that we know that your son murdered Gabby, is it? Exactly. Whereas Christopher Laundrie's deposition is incredibly blunt. He gives little to no responses. He seems like he knows nothing about anything. I don't know if that's a legal tactic, or I genuinely think that he gives more of the energy of, you know, those Jimmy Kimmel parts where they go out onto the street and they ask the dad, when's your kid's birthday? Does your kid have any medical illnesses we need to know about? And they have no clue. It kind of is reminiscent of that. He seems like he does get Brian's birthday wrong at one point. So I don't know.
Like what? Completely wrong? Or
I think he got the year wrong. And then Roberta had to clarify in her deposition the day later. But he just states about those phone calls that he got August 29th. You know, I asked him how he was doing. He was not calm. He got very excited and told me that, you know, Gabby's gone. And he got very frantic. Everything was frantic and quick. So, you know, Gabby's gone.
She said very excited?
Meaning what? Well, I have no idea what he meant.
What?
Well, what else did Brian say? Well, that was, you know, it was quick. He said, you know, he was very panicked and he said he didn't know what to do. He said, can you help me? You know, and he might need a lawyer, you know. And I would ask him why he wouldn't tell me. He was very frantic. Everything was frantic, and I started to not really comprehend, and he was just like, can you help me? And I said, okay, I'll help you. And then I calmed him down a bit, and I said, I don't know. It was all mumbled, and I still don't remember everything that happened, but, you know, he said he needed to get an attorney, and he hung up. Did you understand Gabby is gone to mean that something happened to Gabby? I understood it that something was wrong. Okay, something was wrong, meaning what? I had no idea.
How do you interpret that, right? Someone is gone. Either someone left or someone has passed.
But you have to combine it with, I need a lawyer. Oh,
That's what I'm saying. Like, he keeps saying, I don't know.
Yeah, like, it's like either they left you or they're dead.
Yeah, either I thought someone left me or someone is dead.
Yes.
One is like, oh, they were just left
Sad.
you. So, yeah, okay, fine, move on. The other one's like, oh my goodness, what happened?
Yes.
So what do you mean? Keep saying, oh, I don't know. That's a clear lie. He knows some.
So it's like, it's A, she either left the relationship, or B, she's deceased. Yeah. And then from there, when you get the part where he says, I need an attorney, anyone with brain cells that are not actively cannibalizing itself would assume if it's the other, okay, I think it's this now. I think she's dead because you're asking for an attorney.
Yeah.
Gone is not a vague word.
Yeah.
Gone is not like this esoteric feeling. Gone really is not really a metaphor even.
Yeah.
He said, I had no idea. Your son is frantic and he wants you to call a lawyer because Gabby is gone. Did you believe at the time that he murdered her? No. Did you believe that she was dead at the time? Not at all.
What?
Where did you think gone meant? I didn't even know what to think at the moment, at all. So he also states that when Brian got home from the, quote, fateful trip, he seemed, quote, like a kid who came home, in trouble. That's how he seemed. Well, let's connect the dots. He told you Gabby was gone. He's frantic. He's upset. He's like a kid that came home and he was in trouble. Did that lead you to believe he murdered Gabby? No. I don't know what happened. He, like Roberta, claims that since that day forward, he never asked Brian what happened. What he meant by Gabby is gone, he never asked because the lawyer said, you guys don't talk about it. Did you consider how the Petitos might be feeling not knowing where their daughter was? I'm a considerate person, of course I was. It's not a pleasant thing for anybody, I'm sure. The one thing that people really wanted to know in the depositions, which we really don't get answers to, is what the hell the entire Laundrie family were doing, including Brian, going camping after Gabby is missing. So Brian comes home alone to Florida September 1st. 6 days after, September 6th, the whole Laundrie family go camping in Fort DeSoto. This is not the same place that he is missing in. It's about 60 miles away. September 6th to 8th, the whole family is camping. Some people think that this was a test trip to see if he can live off grid, to test him. Others think that they were talking about things that maybe they couldn't talk about in the family home because, I don't know, maybe they're being paranoid. So this is before there were protesters, but maybe they were being paranoid of, there's so many electronic devices. I don't know. Or some people think maybe it's one last family trip because they all know what's about to come and maybe Brian is going to self-exit and they just know that the walls are closing in and he doesn't want to go to jail. Roberta is confronted with this in the deposition and she is asked, how could you go on vacation knowing that Gabby was gone while the Petito family was looking for her? We just had planned to go. We just wanted to test out our new camper overnight. So this is not Gabby's van, it's a camper. We were just doing our regular thing. I don't know. Bertolino, the attorney, says, I can tell you that the Laundries always go camping, as evidenced by the camper in their driveway on display for all the world to see. Whether or not they went to a particular campsite on a particular day, I cannot tell you, and it's not worth the time, in my opinion. Brian's sister, Cassie, is 10 years older than Brian. She also had protesters and reporters outside her home that she shares with her husband and kids. Now, for a while, she also remained quiet.
At Chewy, find a variety of irresistible food.
She just came out of nowhere, out of the house, ready to talk to people. She said, I'm losing my parents and my brother and my children's aunt, Gabby, and my future sister-in-law on top of all of this, and you guys are not helping. We're cooperating with the police. We're not supposed to talk to anybody, and you're making my children cry.
When was this? When did she start coming out?
This is after Gabby is missing and the whole world is like, what is going on? So this is after they're camping. This is after Brian is home. This is after the world finds out that Gabby is missing.
But they don't know Gabby has passed yet.
No.
So this is when she, like in that window,
yes. Okay. So Gabby's body has not been found yet.
Okay.
Why your parents? Like, what do you mean you're losing your parents? Because they're not talking to us either. Why aren't they talking to you guys? If I knew, I would say, I don't know. Do you think they're involved, your parents? I don't know. We know nothing. You don't know? You're not. We've been finding everything out with the news like everybody else. She says, this is not what we want to be doing. This is not how we want the world to find out when we're angry and upset, but I can't have my kids be crying for 3 days in a row. My parents' lawyer screwed me over. I'm livid and I'm not talking to him. I'm in the boat where I'm getting ignored by my entire family and thrown under the bus by my family's attorney, so I'm just as mad.
Why aren't they talking to you guys?
If I knew, I would say.
Did Brian kill Gabby? I don't know. When describing Brian and Gabby's relationship, she says, of course, everybody bickers, but nothing like what people are saying, or else we would have done something about it. I don't stand for that. I was in a bad relationship similar to what, saying has happened. I wouldn't let that happen. We're not the evil monsters we're being made out to be. We are, unfortunately, in the dark as much as everybody else. She says that she was also confused that Brian came home back to Florida without Gabby. She said, my jaw hit the floor. I mean, the first thought in my head was, oh, they must have broken up and he doesn't want to talk about it and I'm going to give him space. And then he went missing. They explained that Brian's parents aren't speaking because they have a lawyer. My parents' lawyer, we don't have a lawyer. We have nothing to hide. We were told not to talk to anybody and I'm upset that we have to come out here and do this. Again, do you think that Brian killed Gab? I don't know. Silence is not guilt. The FBI told us not to talk. The sooner he is found, the sooner this is over for us. I would tell my brother to just come forward and get us out of this horrible mess. To which one netizen comments, the parents picked their murdering son over their daughter and grandchildren. Lovely people. Others comment, I do give her credit for coming out to talk, unlike her parents. But Gabby's parents and most netizens still don't understand why she couldn't do anything to try and get Brian to speak. Gabby's mom says, what does that statement even do? It does nothing. She might have been out of the loop from the beginning. Who knows what the parents kept from family members? But instead of saying that, if these people supposedly loved Gabby, if she's like a sister, if your kids love her so much, why aren't you begging them to talk? Additionally, newly revealed text messages in the Netflix documentary show Roberta Laundrie and Cassie talking about the investigation in a really bizarre tone. They're talking about how the Northport police state to the public that they didn't know that Brian went hiking because they saw Roberta and they thought it was Brian, remember? But Roberta texts Cassie, the Northport police said Brian and I have a, quote, similar build. Boy, Brian would be not happy about that. Sister Cassie says, yeah, everyone's laughing at that remark because not even remotely close. Roberta responds, short, pudgy, and a big bottom, or short, sassy, and pear-shaped. She's describing her own body. But again, does this really, put yourself in the shoes, your loved one is missing.
So bizarre.
Another infuriating detail to this case is, well, it's infuriating how the Laundries, I think a little bit of how Cassie is also carrying herself, but Gabby probably cared more for Brian's family than Brian ever did. Even when they're on road trips, Gabby would take the time to write, draw on postcards for Cassie's kids. One reads, hey, Uncle Brian and I miss you so much. Everywhere we go reminds us of you. Like the red rocks at Bryce Canyon, the sky here is so open. There's more stars than I've ever seen. Scorpio is so big and always bright every night. It's always the first one we spot. Love, Aunt Gabby. She's like stacks of postcards that she sent to Cassie's kids. Regardless, a lot of people don't like Cassie, the sister, and people don't like this whole camping trip that they went on. Cassie says, we just went for a couple of hours. So she's saying the parents and Brian, she's not even saying how long they were staying there, but she's saying for me and my family, me and my kids, we were there for a few hours, met up with them. There was no grand feeling of goodbye. There was no nothing. I mean, I'm frustrated that in hindsight, I didn't pick up on anything. It was just a regular visit.
So they joined in that 2-day trip? Or
they joined in on the last day. She said that she had to leave after dinner and s'mores because the kids had school.
Like a quick trip?
Yeah. Again, I don't know if my family is constantly camping and they're going on a camping trip. And let's say I have 3 kids. It's a school day. I don't think I'm driving 80 miles for dinner. 80 miles there, 80 miles back home for dinner. I don't think I'm doing it. I'd just be like, we'll see you in the next one, because that's crazy.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe they just love camping. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying that's my personal opinion. Maybe I'm lazy. I don't know. One expert states, I think Brian's parents did help him. Once he came home, he shows up with the van without her. What does he tell his parents? Oh, we broke up. I left her out there. I just decided to drive the van back home and let's go camping. That doesn't make sense. You have to connect the dots. You have to put that puzzle together. Others point out, suddenly he goes from your sacred son that can do no wrong, that is Jesus reincarnated and everybody should love him, to he goes missing and we're not going to do anything to find him. That's very strange. But the attorney Bertolino, in defense of the Laundrie, says, when you've got a gaggle of press and screaming public out at your door 24 hours a day, do you think that Brian and Roberta are going to go down to Walmart and start putting up signs, help me find my son? Now, he does say Brian. He means Chris and Roberta, the parents, but he does say Brian and Roberta. Interesting slip, but regardless. With the new Netflix documentary being released, there are once again circulating theories that Brian Laundrie is actually not dead because of the way that the Laundries have handled themselves when he goes missing. Because of everything that's progressed, they just feel like he is alive and he is out there. There have been old pictures dug up of what someone resembles Brian eating at a restaurant in Mexico. Another of someone who resembles Brian eating fried chicken with the caption, did Brian Laundrie come in for fried chicken tonight? There's a TikToker who looks similar to Brian Laundrie and had to make his whole TikTok account called Not Brian Laundrie. a lot of people are just taking this at face value, with some people running with the conspiracy theories that he's alive. Somehow he faked his own death in the reserve with the help of his parents, and he is out there. I mean, that's a mom who would do anything for her son, clearly, and she probably stated that once before in her deposition. So he's got to be free, watching all this unfold. Others argue, what if he didn't even leave the country? That's so hard. What if he's in that house? A lot of people are taking drone footage of Roberta and Chris Laundrie gardening in the backyard. So while Brian is missing, Roberta is gardening nonstop. And they say it looks almost at one point that a hand is coming up from out of the soil. So what if they had some sort of system under there that he could crawl under and hide, and they're hiding him? There have been all sorts of conspiracy theories that they have tunnels built under the house. He's under the garden. At one point, he would have been under the shed. People are like, the FBI need to check the cameras. Other conspiracy theorists believe that Brian is alive, but not under the garden, not in Mexico. He's likely somewhere in the Appalachian Mountains, with some reports stating that they are certain that they interacted with him on the trail. Now, I will say a few things about this. A lot of these conspiracy theories were from before Brian's remains were found in the Carlton Reserve. So before they're found, people are like, I just saw him in Mexico. Here's a picture of him, of what looks like him on the Appalachian Trail. Now, once his remains were found, there were still some people who were heavily invested in the case that were having doubts and going back and forth. But then with the Netflix documentary, I think a lot of new people that didn't know about the case found out about it, and they just started running with maybe a few TikToks that they saw. So one of the biggest things that I saw on TikTok that was circulating was that Brian's uncle was the one that identified his remains to be Brian. A lot of netizens are saying that Brian Laundrie's uncle was the one to identify the dental remains, which means he could just lie and say it's a match, except it's not true. So with Brian, the first thing that was identified was his dental remains, because it's fast. It's way faster than checking DNA of someone. So they confirmed the dental remains, and then they did the DNA. And the medical examiner, the forensic odontologist, the medical examiner's office, nobody that worked on this case is related to Brian Laundrie. So regardless if maybe Brian Laundrie's previous pediatric dentist or any dentist had been his uncle, they were not the ones to verify his remains. Even if they cross-referenced, they did DNA.
So what's everyone talking about lately?
Betty, it's the online slots casino for...
Would be very hard. Now, if you're saying maybe there's only a few teeth, like maybe, because I saw some people are like, what if he just plucked out his teeth and left them? There were also some rumors on TikTok that not a lot of bones were found and just a few teeth were found. That is also false. The vast majority of his bones, including very large bones that you just cannot live without, or it would be very difficult to expel them from your body and be alive without proper medical care. Yeah, they were there, and they were confirmed to be Brian Laundrie's. So I think that's what is also kind of tricky. A lot of things have just been kind of warped and then run. I do think that when he was missing, a lot of people felt like he was on the run. So it's almost like they're taking sentiments of that, and it's kind of warped into this thing. And the only reason that I'm trying to debunk a lot of these conspiracies is I imagine it's very difficult for the Petito family to hear over and over again that he might be alive. And it becomes less of a story of what happened to Gabby, and they're trying so hard to raise awareness for DV, and more of like, ooh, conspiracy, what if he's alive? And I do get it, conspiracies are very interesting, but it just seems, there's not really a lot of good basis behind the theories. Side note, there was also misinformation briefly that the gun that was used for his self-exit was never found. It was found. Others question a part of the autopsy report that says that Brian had died anywhere between 45 days and 672 days prior to his body being found. He had only been missing for 37 days. So people thought it was strange. But the same autopsy results state the water temperature was 85 degrees. Post-mortem interval was 47 to 672 days, or approximately 1.5 months to nearly 2 years. These findings must be interpreted with caution because these studies have not been adequately tested in Florida. Florida is hot. Florida is humid. There's so many natural predators in where he was found. It is not the most unbelievable. So people were saying Gabby was found weeks later, but her body is generally intact. But she was found in Grand Teton. He's found 3 feet submerged in water for weeks in humid, hot weather with lots of animal predators. And so people were just saying, I mean, could it really do that much to a body? Yeah. I mean, just even different temperatures of water that a body would be submerged in, you would be surprised at of decomposition, of how much it varies.
I wonder, like, even just a couple degrees will mean everything for the reaction of
and the types of bacteria that are harbored in those types of swamp waters versus like ocean water or fresh water like a spring, that would be very different too. Now, in an interview, the family attorney Bertolino states, and as everybody knows, Brian's remains and personal items were located somewhat in close proximity to the entrance to the park. So a lot of people think he sounds like he's saying identifying items, which sounds very like you want to put identifying items near
entrance
the body to be like, oh, this is my identity. But he says all that speculation came from legal experts that Brian is still alive, that were on these 24-hour news shows that had to fill in some time. And what better way to fill in some time than make up stuff? There was speculation that there were burner phones, that we were dressing him in funny outfits and sending him across the Mexican border, sending him across certain bodies of water to other countries. All of that was just to fill in the networks that just had to fill in some time. He says he wants to laugh when he thinks about how horribly Chris and Roberta Laundrie were treated by the media. He says,
I think the media needs to check itself. I can tell you that I had several words with some producers for the media when they wanted me on their shows. They went from reporting the news to making up the news, and it was just horrible.
With respect to the public, certainly they have the right to intervene and protest, but I don't think it's acceptable in our society, our civilized society, to have people protesting outside of anyone's homes. I will say, again, a lot of netizens have mixed feelings about this, but I think the one sentiment that netizens come across is maybe if they had underage children in that home. Like, people were upset that people were protesting outside of Cassie's home. Because also it's like a degree of separation. Like, it's her brother. I don't know, right? And also, she's got 3 young kids. So people were upset about that. But with the Laundries, I think most netizens are on the, I'm not calling the police, you know?
Everyone's thinking the parents are literally shielding the son, which they kind of are. Like,
and at the time that the protesters were there, a lot of netizens were split. Is this okay? Is this not okay to do, right? However, in hindsight, a lot of netizens think maybe they should have had more protesters so people knew where Brian was going. Because Brian just left and the police did nothing. But Bertolino states, I think we don't do witch hunts anymore. And that's what the mob did. The media supported it. And if you go back and you review the tape, you'll see that I'm correct. I have no warm and fuzzy feelings for the way that the press handled this particular saga. Okay, nobody has warm and fuzzy feelings for you. And just some random points of contentions that netizens have. After Brian's death, the parents spent about 3 hours hiking in the same area, which some could argue could be their way of grieving. But it just, what are they doing? Some thought it was just weird. So it seems with most netizens that have been following this case pretty closely and have been following the work that the Petito family have been doing, it's pretty clear that Brian is dead is what most netizens feel. However, the part that netizens are having a really hard time accepting is that the Laundrie parents did not know what was happening. They just can't accept it. Brian's parents must have known. They must have known what he was leaving to do. They must have known what happened, is what netizens feel. Rose, Gabby's, one of her closest friends, says, his parents found his remains. You know, that blew my mind. I didn't even believe it. I thought it was like fake news. I was like, what do you mean? This makes no sense. I was pissed off, to be honest. I just wanted answers. And when we found his remains, those answers went out the door. Others have also pointed out that Roberta Laundrie goes dressed in black to find her dead son's body. Nicole, Gabby's mom, says, that whole thing was mind-boggling to me. I don't even understand any of it. I don't understand it. She states, I speak for myself when I say, Brian, I forgive you. I needed to release myself from the chains of anger and bitterness. So she's saying, I forgive you, not because what he did is forgivable, but she just needs to move on so she can help other people. They started a Gabby Petito Foundation where they help other victims of DV. And I can imagine that must be very difficult if you're just consumed with anger all day. And to see these types of cases that are so similar, I don't think that anyone could handle it if they don't release some of that or let it go a little bit. And she says, I refuse to let your despicable act define the rest of my life. But as for you, Roberta, I call you out individually because you are evidently the mastermind that shattered your family and mine with your evil ways. I see no empathy in your eyes, no remorse in your heart, no willingness to take responsibility for your actions. You do not deserve forgiveness. You deserve to be forgotten. Now, the Jeopardy game, you know those game shows? There's a game called Jeopardy, and they asked a question during the actual show that reads, in 2021, fugitive Brian Laundrie ended his days in Florida's Mayakahatchee Creek Park, home to these long and toothy creatures. So now you're supposed to be like, the answer is alligators, or what is alligators? That's how they phrase it. I don't know why. But the answer is alligators. Is this distasteful? I think so. But the fact that the Laundries barely ever speak out about anything, but they're so enraged by this question. This is recent, so this is after Brian is dead. They spoke out about this Jeopardy question, and that rubbed netizens the wrong way. So this Jeopardy episode releases, and I would say like 95% of netizens are like, that is pretty distasteful. I will say most people are like, are we going to cancel Jeopardy? Probably not, because it's Brian Laundrie, but that is pretty gross, right? Mm-hmm. But then once the Laundries come out with this statement, the entire Laundrie family is appalled and concurs with all the comments on social media on how distasteful this is. I believe an apology is due.
Please.
For this distasteful Jeopardy question to be posed only highlights the sensationalism that surrounded this tragedy and puts salt on the wounds of a family that has not been afforded any rights or privacy when the family themselves did nothing wrong. So now most netizens at this point start switching up. In my opinion, somewhat understandably, they start switching from feeling outraged at the distasteful question to, hold on, what did you just say? The overall sentiment turning to, have they apologized to the Petito family for withholding information pertaining to their daughter's murder? No? Okay then, moving on. Or, that was tasteless. However, the Laundries deserve nothing, so they can go cry about it. I don't care. Others felt it was more of a slap to the Petito family than anything. Other netizens are like, forget Jeopardy. Talk about the dumb cops. The fact that they didn't know that Brian went missing, that even the Moab police, like, what do you mean? So with that, in 2022, the Petito family sued the Laundrie family, and the Laundrie attorney just basically tried to argue that the Laundries are exercising their right to remain silent, and if the lawsuit were to go through, that would completely turn the fundamental constitutional rights on silence on its head. But the Laundries also countered the lawsuit. So when it's a civil lawsuit, there's like phases called discovery where just a lot of things get exposed and both parties need to have access to specific information. You can't just be like, no, you can't look at this because this is my phone. Like you can't, there's certain things that the judge has to approve that both parties need to have access to. Mm-hmm. But the Laundries long list of requests for the Petito family. The whole list is very long. They want all communications that both Gabby's parents had with state and federal agencies. They want all phone records from Gabby and her parents from July 2nd to September 30th of 2021. They want any documents and communications regarding the compensation or contracts related to publishing rights, movie rights, or television rights.
That's so gross.
Yeah, you know what's even more gross? Is the fact that sometimes the damage is done by requesting something. Yeah. So the Petito family, they are not thinking about movie rights or television rights. But when the Laundrie family requests that, you will see a good group of netizens turn around and say, yeah, they're on too many TV shows right now talking about what happened. Yeah. You're right. Maybe the foundation is like, they want more fame. Even asking for something that probably doesn't exist is already planting seeds in a lot of the public's mind. And I think they knew exactly what they were doing, in my opinion. People commenting are saying the nerve that they have to request anything at all from Gabby's parents, though, is despicable. Mm-hmm. They also argue in the motion that they should be, quote, protected from annoyance and embarrassment, and the public curiosity is not a reason to require them to discuss personal and heart-wrenching details. Another insane detail to add, Roberta drives the Mustang, the silver Mustang that Brian drove to the park to the deposition. They have other cars. Why do you have to drive that specific car? To which one netizen comments, this is a whole, my son is more important than your daughter moment. That woman is really evil. They reach an undisclosed settlement in 2024, but the Laundrie family have not had any criminal charges filed against them. And with that, the Gabby Petito family have started the Gabby Petito Foundation. Nicole says, "We started the foundation. We just want to bring attention to the dangers and the signs of DV, more awareness, prevention. I mean, we would do anything to bring Gabby back, but that's obviously not possible. So we have a choice. We can do nothing, or we can use her voice, her platform, and try to change lives for others. Help people, make sure that this story doesn't happen again." They've been big in advocating for what is called the lethality assessment protocol. It's a series of questions that police officers are trained on to get further context on DV-related calls. It's not even just the way they ask the questions, it's the questions themselves, it's the way that they're told to gather these responses, because a lot of DV victims feel like they need to take the fault. Because if they let anything happen to the abuser, it's probably going to come back 5 times harder on them if they ever get out of jail, or if nothing happens. God forbid they tell the truth to the police and then they're still not taken to jail, which happens a lot. Gabby's father says, "I hope when I leave this place and I get to see her again, I can ask her, 'Did I make you proud?' I hope she'll say yes." Gabby's story has clearly resonated with a lot of people. One netizen writes, "Gabby saved my life 3 years ago. I didn't even know her, and I wish she was still on this earth to thank her in person. I left my abusive ex of 6 years once I followed this case, and I heard how she was taken away. I will forever be thankful for her. I will always think of her, and I love you, Gabby." There has been a lot of discourse about how Gabby's story was covered and how so many other people go missing and never get coverage. Just in Wyoming, which is where Gabby went missing, 710 indigenous people, mostly girls, have gone missing in the past decade, and none of them have hit national headlines to any degree that is even comparable to Gabby Petito's story. A lot of people were upset that the minute someone goes missing that's not indigenous, that's all the entire world can talk about. With one reporter saying, "Imagine the men and women and children in the community where the last 10 years, more than 700 indigenous people have gone missing and nobody has said a word, but one missing white woman turns up in their backyard and the world suddenly pays attention." Joe Petito, Gabby's dad, saw the news. And he felt the initial wave of shock and anger. Like, what do you mean people only care about my daughter because she's white? I'm sure on a personal level, you feel slightly attacked, taken aback. Like, the worst thing that could have happened to Gabby happened, and people are saying, "Why are we only talking about Gabby?" He said, "When I heard that, my initial reaction wasn't a positive one. Saying Gabby's color was the only reason, I was taken aback by that." But he said, instead of anger, he took a deep breath and he said, "Then I started looking into it. I did a deep dive. I looked at popular missing persons cases, and yeah, the ones that hit the mainstream, they all look the same." And so he has spent the last 3 years advocating for missing Black, Brown, and Indigenous people through the foundation. And also, we're working on a lot of lesser-known cases, so keep an eye out for those coming soon.
That is amazing.
But it's just, it is interesting to see how he didn't just lash out in anger.
Yeah, what she said, that is amazing. That he was able to look outside of himself from his initial anger, which is rightfully so. If I lost someone said, "You only care about them because based off their whatever color, blah, blah," I'll be upset. But that to look at that and to do something else amazing, that's amazing. Shout out to him. He's a real one.
And yeah.
What amazing.
A lot of people have said this case serves as a really good message on DV. I mean, everything that you expect of Gabby stating that she's the one that started the fight, she did something that warranted the abuse, she's the one that instigated it, she's taking responsibility for Brian's actions. That's typically what victims do. Additionally, the fact that Brian is taking her phone and her keys, that should have been such a red alarm for the officers. It's not your phone. It's not your keys. You can't take other people's belongings. And the fact that you think that you can is crazy. Like, that's already abusive. The Petito family filed a $50 million wrongful death suit against the Moab Police Department, to which, there was a lot of backlash when they filed this lawsuit, with people saying, "Why is it that parents just love making money off their dead kids?" Wow. Yeah, let's not even get me started on that rant, but every single penny would have gone to the Petito Foundation. So even if it didn't, it's just like, what are we doing right now? But they state the four of us her 4 parents, don't want to be here. We would give it up in a second if that meant that she was back. Unfortunately, this is the best way to have those changes made. It's that simple. A segment of the lawsuit reads, the officers never directly questioned Brian about whether he hit Gabby or how she ended up with scratches on her face. The officers egregiously misinterpreted Gabby's extreme emotional distress, seeing it as the cause of domestic violence rather than the result. Negligence deprived Gabby of her safety and ultimately her life. They brought up other things where Officer Pratt, the main one leading the investigation of the Moab, when they pulled the couple over, he went on a podcast once and he said, it's just too much paperwork. Like, there's no way I'm doing all that paperwork. Like, people have said he loves to say stuff like that. But still, there are some people who see the body cam footage and they see nothing wrong with it. They say, sorry, parents, but she admitted she was the abuser. This is always about the money. These parents are disgusting. And to kind of fuel those netizens, even the police department, Moab, described the lawsuit as, quote, a substitute for a GoFundMe campaign. Gabby's father responded, Moab still doesn't get it. This case has never been about money. Ultimately, a judge dismissed the lawsuit against the Moab police for Gabby's death. A spokesperson for the police department states, Gabby's death was a terrible tragedy, but there was no way for the officers to predict what happened later during the couple's trip. It's clear the Moab City Police Department officers are not responsible for Gabrielle Petito's eventual murder. Our officers acted with kindness, respect, and empathy towards Ms. Petito. Clearly, netizens feel differently, with one comment reading, they had 2 witnesses telling them that very clearly he was hitting her. Others stating, what were the police supposed to do, though? They separated them and they can't help if they link back up. That's like blaming the parents for not doing more when they knew them a heck of a lot better than the police. To which someone fights back, what do you mean what the police were supposed to do? Their jobs? Review the entire interaction. It's insane. People are saying if Gabby had been arrested, maybe it would have been a red alarm for her parents to come in and say, wait, we didn't know what was happening. Because obviously victims will try to hide it for as long as possible. Others say they're not directly responsible for Gabby's murder, but they definitely need training and retraining and spotting signs and tells of DV. They also need lessons on dropping the good old boy club attitude. Example, the cop that basically said, oh, Brian, I understand. Women are so emotional and crazy. What the fuck was that? One expert in DV states, the officers just greenlit the abuser. They've just reinforced his behavior. And I think he felt relief. And I saw that relief in that footage. It was palpable. Now, one survey done with no relation to Gabby's case found that 1 in 4 women are scared to call the police on their abuser for that exact reason. One states, everyone believes him because he's so nice and sweet and respectful to them, but it's different. He will say it's me and the police will believe him. Another victim states, I felt the police were buddy-buddy with my partner and ignored what I had to say about the reality of the situation. I was scared and they ignored me. The survey showed that 1 in 4 women reported that they had been arrested or threatened with arrest during a partner abuse incident in which they were the victim. One person wrote, they believed him every time because he didn't leave marks, but this time he did, and they accused me of hitting myself in the face because they would tell me that we need to separate, and since I had nowhere to go, I should sleep in my car. He had cuts on his knuckles from hitting me, and they said I should be charged with assault. The Moab Police Department even questions, would Gabby be alive today if this case was handled differently? That is an impossible question to answer. Nobody knows, and nobody will ever know how to answer that question. Gabby's entire family took a trip out to where Gabby was found. Nicole says, as soon as I landed in Wyoming, the only words coming out of my mouth were, oh my gosh, because of how beautiful it was. Once we got to where Gabby was, you could just feel her.
Why can't you stay organized? I've experienced this myself, and it's called chronic
there. The family decided to spread Gabby's ashes at her final resting place. Some people were wondering why they would choose to do such a thing, but they said they felt her presence. It's such a beautiful place. Gabby loves Grand Teton, and she always wanted to visit, so that's why. And all of her family members say they just felt her there. Even when they went to spread her ashes, they took this group photo, and there's this huge orb in the middle of the photo, and they say Gabby. It was Gabby with them. There was a local memorial held for Gabby where they released butterflies, and one butterfly landed on a picture of Gabby and stayed for a little while. The Petito family have since crushed the van and kept the gasoline cap and a sticker. Last year, during the 3-year anniversary of Gabby's death, her dad writes online, 3 years ago, you were taken from us. We can't stop crying when we think of you. There is no waking up from this nightmare. I ask anyone who reads this to please share a missing person flyer today. They all have matching tattoos that Gabby had on her arm that says, "Let it be," with an ocean wave. And they say the only question that they have is, why couldn't Brian just let her be? As for the laundries, they have remained very private still. But with the Netflix documentary being released, Stephen Bertolino, the family attorney, releases a statement. The documentary was what we expected, one perspective depicted as the truth as seen through their lens. Similar to Republicans and Democrats fighting it out lately, each side believes their perspective is correct, hard to see through the lens of the other with all the noise and distrust. The documentary contained many inaccuracies, incorrect juxtapositions of timelines and misstatements and omissions of fact, perhaps deliberate to capture their, quote, truth, perhaps due to simple error. We all know that Brian took Gabby's life, and then Brian took his own as well. Let the parents of both Gabby and Brian mourn and remember them in peace. As for Cassie Laundrie, Brian's sister, after the Netflix documentary, she went to Instagram to tell the new wave of all the haters, "If you're new here and just starting to attack me today, I've been no contact with my parents for almost 2 years, so have fun." Most netizens don't really think that she's deserving of sympathy, writing, "Girl, a quick glance at your account shows that you never not once advocated for Gabby. You and your folks deserve all the backlash and karma that you're getting for the complete lack of grace you showed that poor girl's family during one of the worst things a parent can go through." Another reads simply, "Read the room, shut the hell up, it's not about you." Even the Laundrie neighbors have spoken out, writing, "When I pass their house, I get a sick feeling in the pit of my stomach. I hate them. I wish they would just leave our neighborhood." Others say, "Just horrible people in my belief. It's unanimous. Nobody wants anything to do with them." Some neighbors report that people still throw dirty diapers and dog feces into their yard, which most of the neighbors seem to have an unspoken pact. You see something? Do nothing. But there are still crazy netizens. One comment reads, "Gabby and Brian were both crazy. He more than she, but they both deserve their outcome. Also, what parent let their kids go across the country in a van at 22 years old and no parties foresee a big problem?" Another comment reads, "This is not a 14-year-old going on a school trip. She's an adult and she's got to make her own decisions, you know? They respected her decisions. Her parents did everything to prepare her, and she knew what she was doing. She planned for this trip, and if Brian was not a killer, Gabby would be alive. She would have great memories of a trip." Like, why are they trying to make it Gabby's fault, Gabby's parents' fault?
Yeah.
It's so strange. Other netizens just support the Laundries for whatever reason. They comment, "Why do people do this? His parents didn't murder her. They must be in awful shock too. They lost their son and they know everybody hates him. I feel for them." Some clearly don't even know what's happening. They're just basking in the fact that they're as intellectually stimulated as a bag of carrots. They comment, "The public are still harassing these innocent people. It's disgusting. A better use of time would be asking why wasn't Gabby arrested after law enforcement determined she was the aggressor in Moab? But we're not ready for that conversation that women can be abusers."
What?
I will say most people have some neural pathways still working in action, with majority of comments reading along the lines of, "There's a reason that Brian was the way he was. It's his parents." Others say, "Yeah, everybody, totally. You know, say, if you hate my guts, I'll get new ones." That's a normal thing to say. No, Roberta Laundrie sounds like a delusional narcissistic creep who knows that her son was a monster and she didn't care. There's no way that she didn't know that he was abusing Gabby. It's what Gabby would want me to do. She says, "I think I'm doing good. I think..."
Alright, I'm going to end here for tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Giovanni Hall Art. You can follow me on Instagram, Blue Sky, Tumblr, Twitter, TikTok, Twitch, YouTube, and Patreon for more good stuff. Hopefully I'll finish this artwork soon, the coloring portion of it, and I'll post the finished results. There'll be alternate versions of this drawing, because this is just the TikTok version and, you know, safe for work version and stuff. So cool. Alright, see you guys on next stream. Have a good one. Bye.